Hello, and welcome to Connecting Communities, Beyond the Blog podcast, bringing you insights and inspiration from the Suncoast campaign for grade level reading and more. We're here to explore how communities can come together to support the success of children and families, and to empower the parents, caregivers, educators, and organizations who care so deeply about them. Thanks for joining us. Hi, I'm Laurie Miller, and today we are turning the spotlight on something that makes the Suncoast campaign for grade level reading shine all summer long: summer learning. School might be out, but learning doesn't stop, and it definitely shouldn't slide. For many children, the summer months are filled with growth, exploration, and memory making. But for others, they can mean lost progress, especially in reading. That's where the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, or SCGLR, steps in, with programs designed not just to prevent the summer slide, but to keep learning alive in fun, meaningful, and accessible ways. Thanks to the thoughtful, visionary support of the Patterson Foundation, the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading is helping children stay curious, stay connected, and stay on track to read on grade level, transforming summer into a season of discovery. And today, we're thrilled to welcome two incredible leaders who help make that happen. First up is Karen Windon, Community Engagement Leader with the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Her work connects schools, families, daycares, and community centers, and invites the entire community to ask, who else cares about this? Then we'll hear from Beth Duda, Director of the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, who will walk us through the broader goals and aspirations that power this work, and why summer is such a critical time for learning and engagement. Let's jump in. Karen, welcome. You have such a unique role at the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, not just working with families, but really connecting the dots across the entire community. Tell us a little bit about your approach to summer learning and how you invite people in.
Well, I think it's really easy, Laurie, because no one is against summer learning. We just need to change that terminology a little bit so it doesn't feel like an onerous thing that learning is, but a great opportunity to expand our horizons. So when we couch it in words like that, it's easy for people to say, oh, I have a role in that space. And so we are able to reach out to schools for their summer programs, to camps for their summer programs, to families who are struggling with how to engage their child over the summer, to faith-based organizations, that whole gamut of the learning sphere. And everyone wants to be a part of that. Sometimes they just don't quite know how.
That idea that everyone has a role to play is so powerful. What are some ways that the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading is supporting families during the summer?
I think we have a number of avenues that we use. We have the Suncoast Summer Reading Challenge, which focuses on kids who are attending some of our really great camps across our 4-county region. And we provide supports to them. We provide the books that we use for the summer program, and encourage the staff of those camps to really share their passion for reading with kids. So often kids don't believe or don't understand that adults continue to learn. And so having that opportunity to really share those kinds of things can be really powerful. We also have the This Book is Cool program, where we invite about 4,200 kids across the region to register and receive lovely reading resources over the course of the summer and support the families in finding ways to really engage with that reading opportunity.
Yes, those are such excellent programs, both the Suncoast Summer Reading Challenge and This Book is Cool. This Book is Cool provides so many resources for families. I know they get 20 free high-quality books. They receive an activity book that includes puzzles and games and craft activities that are all related to the books that they're reading. And they also get access to 100 free webisodes of all of the books that are part of This Book is Cool over the summer, so they can engage with that and dive deeper into those experiences with the books, as well as they get reading incentives like bracelets and brag tags. And it really makes summer fun and creates this opportunity for families that might not otherwise be able to almost create their own summer camp for their children.
I love that approach, that thought process of their own summer camp. We always encourage families to set up a reading nook or some fun place where their kids can read, or taking a set of books in the car with them, because there's always opportunities to get a few pages in and then talk to them about what are you reading? What was fun about it? Oh, how did you feel about that part of the book? And just engaging in a really simple way, but powerful way to help kids understand that reading really is the key to succeeding. It opens doors for everything.
Yes, it's impactful and it's fun. I love seeing the photos of the kids over the summer, whether it's reading their books in fun places like the beach. I saw a kid reading a book in a shopping cart at a grocery store. So these kids really get into these books in unusual places. They pack it into their summer of fun. And also, I love seeing them create all of the arts and crafts activities. And it's delightful to really see.
Yes, and we know that kids who start doing some of those activities then think of other activities that they can do either with that book or with other books that they read. And once they start thinking about that, if I'm reading a book about a different place, well, then I can look at a map. I can figure out where that is. And there's just so many extensions that make learning exciting and help kids realize that lifelong learning is a real thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's definitely something that I want to show my daughter, that I continue to learn. And this is fun. This is basically like kids get to be a part of a huge book club.
Right. And I think the books that we provide for the summer are so many different genres. There's fiction, there's nonfiction, there's silly books, there's poetic books, and it really exposes kids to a lot of things that perhaps they wouldn't normally read. I remember one child who was a very reluctant reader, and once we introduced a graphic novel, almost like a comic book novel, into the lineup, that child was ecstatic, and according to reports from the mom, has not stopped reading since.
That's so nice to hear. For families and organizations that are listening and wondering, how can I get involved? What ways might they get involved in our summer learning programs?
There are so many ways that people and organizations can become involved. We have some businesses who have stood up reading programs for the summer. We have our local libraries who do that and are always looking for community partners. People can become celebrity readers at our pop-up laundry events that we host. Families can register for This Book is Cool and really engage that. That program involves kids who are going to be in pre-K through third grade in the fall. So it is a big expanse of kids who are learning to read. So many opportunities to just do big things or little things. And all of those accumulate to make a really big difference.
Additionally, I know that we have family engagement opportunities over the summer where the whole family can get in on the fun of the book. I'm very much looking forward to those as well.
We are too. We think that's going to be so much fun to have families come together to just laugh and giggle and really appreciate how books can pull families together.
Are there any stories or moments that really capture the spirit of this work and really stick with you?
I think the one that I always come back to, we started this program, This Book is Cool, during COVID when libraries were shut down. There was very limited access to reading materials, and we wanted to make sure kids had an opportunity to stay engaged with learning and reading. And one little girl, we got her books to her. She was going into third grade, and one of the books was Charlotte's Web. Turns out she had started reading that book, and believe it or not, the dog ate the book, and she wasn't able to finish it, and she was heartbroken. So we got the book to the family, the set of books to the family, and the mom called, and she was in tears. And I thought, what is wrong? And she said, you had no way of knowing this, but she was reading that book. It's the first full book she's ever read by herself, and she couldn't finish it. And she said, it's $13 to buy, and we just don't have that kind of money. And you dropped it on our doorstep, and gave us the entry into reading. And that moment will live forever in my heart, that this little girl who had always thought she wasn't a reader became a reader and was able to continue with that.
That really is a beautiful, heart-touching story, Karen. And I know that there are so many others like that from the summer programs, and how it makes such a deep and meaningful impact on the families that participate. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
What I love about these activities is they're not just educational, they are joyful and fun. How do you help families see that learning in the summer doesn't have to be complicated or stressful?
Yeah, and families are busy, and so they don't have a lot of time sometimes. But I always think about, most families are driving down the road, and that's such a great opportunity to do some of the fun things. You pick a word, and you ask your child to rhyme with it. Okay, May, day, say, hey, and you make some fun little things out of it. And while that doesn't seem like learning per se, it really is a strong way to introduce kids and reinforce to kids the beauty of words and how we can change those around. So there's so many little things parents and families can do to really reinforce that. I was driving here today, and there was a truck that had wood grain, and all I could think was compound words. Let's look for those as we're driving down the road. So just so many things that families can do that feel spontaneous, but if we're a little intentional with that spontaneity, that learning can just be amplified throughout the summer.
That is such an important reminder. It's easy to let go or to not have that intentionality behind it. And a little intentionality, which is deeply meaningful with the Patterson Foundation, and everything that they do is so intentional. And having just a little ounce of that as a parent at home really goes a long way.
It really does, and it can be so much fun. Silly reading is one of the best things. I remember a dad telling me, I'm really worried about my son. He's not reading like he should be. And I said, well, do you read with him? And he said, yes. And I said, do you read like this book has words in it? And he said, yeah, that way he sees every word. And I said, how long do you think you're going to listen if somebody read to you that way? So put the emotion into it, put the energy into it, and have fun with reading. Don't make it a chore. Make it a joy.
That is so beautifully put. Karen, thank you again for the work you do to bring the community together and for helping remind us that everyone has a role to play in a child's learning journey.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share a passion for reading, because that's what it's all about.
Now let's turn to Beth Duda, Director of the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, to explore the broader vision behind these summer learning initiatives. Beth, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Let's talk about why summer learning is such a vital focus for the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading.
It's a great question, and one that actually we're asked quite often, because I think all of us think of summer as a great time to kick back and relax, and actually summer is the only time that children can make up any losses that they might have in reading, mathematics. And what I mean by that is that we know through different studies that students learn at the same rate, typically, overall. So if we have a group of kids that is perhaps a little bit under grade level and a group that's perhaps reading on grade level, as they go through the year, they're pretty much going to stay there. And then during the summer, if the children who are reading on level have experiences that give them the opportunity to have, high quality reading, they might gain a couple months in reading proficiency. The children who maybe don't have those opportunities can lose up to 2.5 months of reading skill, and then they go through the next year of learning, and that gap stays wide, and perhaps that next summer even gets wider. So in the summer, if children are exposed to great learning opportunities, high quality reading materials, opportunities to explore their own curiosity and wonder, they can actually close that gap in the summer. So summer can be a superpower time for families who are wanting to make sure that their children are reading on level and getting that love of learning that will propel them in the future.
Wow, that is super interesting. As a parent, I've never really put it together like that in terms of that gap being there and closing the gap, and how instead of wanting our children to have the summer slide, we want them to have a summer soar.
Absolutely. And if we can close that gap, I think all of us as human beings, we feel when we're on track. We feel when we're approaching things that might be a little bit difficult for us. And what we want to do is we want kids and families to lean in to get through those crux points. Yes, decoding reading in the very beginning can be very difficult for some kids. But rather than having them say, "Ooh, that's hard, I don't want to do that anymore," we want to find the ways that we can encourage them and get them through those crux points so they can get on the other side to where reading is fun and entertaining and a place where they can actually get knowledge. One of the things we say very often with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading is that we teach children how to read between birth and third grade. After third grade, they're expected to be able to read to learn. So those early years are important for us to put that foundation in place so they can soar in the later years.
Talking about this gap, something that really stood out to me, and it's something that you had actually mentioned to me recently, was that nearly 90% of parents believe their kid is at or above grade level, but in reality, only about 30% are demonstrating proficiency in reading or math. And that is a disconnect that really makes it difficult for families to know how best to support their children.
It's true. So a national organization called Learning Heroes is the source of some of that information. Now, let me say that county by county, the specifics of how many children are reading on level are different. But as parents, the assumption is that the children are doing better than they truly are. Some of the reasoning for that is that children very often in a school are graded on a number system or perhaps a letter grade. So it's possible that a child who is doing their assigned reading and doing well in discipline might be getting B's or even A's in language arts. But the level of their assignments is under the level that is expected for that grade. And unless a parent does the deep dive into that, they might not be aware of that. Now, many, many educators are in communication with families. They're helping families understand the test scores. In Florida, there's the FAST test, and that can give parents the information they need to be able to determine whether or not their child is at level. But it's important for the families to determine that. Now, certainly the test scores are important, but there are also indicators, seeing if they're able to pick out letters on signs if they're very young, or put words together if they're a little bit older. Do they have a natural curiosity about what words mean, or seeing words that they might not know as sight words? Are they leaning in to find out what that word is, or are they backing away thinking, oh, that's too hard? Sometimes we have parents approach us that aren't sure about the reading level of their child, or what is too easy for their child, or what is too difficult for their child. And there are some easy ways to determine that. So the first thing that I want to say is if your child has a strong interest in certain content, chances are they will push themselves to read over their level just for that content. You know, I'm thinking of a child that I know last summer who was just absolutely enthralled with everything Taylor Swift. And if there had been a book at a college level about Taylor Swift, this little one would have tried to read it. Having parents read with their children is a wonderful thing. So if your child has a great interest in a book that is perhaps over the level that they're reading it with them can be a great solution. But if you're wanting your child to have an independent reading experience and you're not sure if the book is good for them, you can follow the 5-finger rule. And that is to pick a short passage of the book and have the child read it aloud. And then just count how many times that they don't know the word or are having a difficult time sounding out the word. And if in a short passage you get to over 5 places where they're having a challenge, that might be a little bit hard for them to read independently. So you might want to, pick out something that seems to be a little bit easier. Keeping in mind that as children are progressing with their reading skills, there will be times when it's easy and they're sailing through, and there will be times that they might need encouragement, but you will never be sorry for the time that you put in to help your child read.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying all of that because it is tricky as a parent to navigate. And I could imagine that I might not know where I stand with my child and their proficiency in reading and whether or not we're on grade level. And then the summer happens and I'm assuming that we're doing well, namely because maybe I'm just interpreting the data incorrectly or for any number of reasons. I just think that's where we are. And then over the summer, oh my gosh, look at the learning loss has become even greater. And now it's going to be even more difficult to catch up next year. I really appreciate how the initiatives over summer that the Suncoast campaign for grade level reading leads help bridge that gap. Can you speak a little bit more about those programs?
Oh, excellent. Yes, I would be happy to. This Book is Cool is a signature program of the Suncoast campaign for grade level reading. And the program started during the pandemic because we knew that some of our asset-limited families had no access to books at the top of the pandemic. The libraries were closed, the school libraries were closed, there was no summer school, no summer camps. So in our looking at the landscape and wanting to make a difference, This Book is Cool is born. We were able to get some data from the first year of This Book is Cool, and the children who participated in the program, 86% of them showed no reading loss during the time that their schools were out. So we took that as a very encouraging sign and doubled down the following year. And in subsequent years, we have increased the program each year. Last summer, we had over 4,100 children across our 4 county regions who are participating in This Book is Cool. So that's a wonderful way that we can directly serve families that have an interest in keeping their kids, incoming pre-K through incoming third graders, involved in the reading process. So that's one of our summer programs. The other is the Suncoast Summer Reading Challenge. When we think about who else cares about this, we know that our summer providers, that would be people who are running summer programming, YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs, some of our neighborhood associations have programs where kids are meeting during the summer. And as we were looking at how can we partner with those organizations to encourage them to keep summer learning at the top of their radar and affirming the very important role they have in the success of our kids and our families, we put forth the Suncoast Summer Reading Challenge. So we encourage the summer providers to have reading opportunities and learning opportunities for the children during the weeks that they are in session, that there's a component for family and parent engagement involved. We help them by sharing the books from This Book is Cool with them. And then we ask that they advocate for the kids to read at least 6 books at their grade level during the time that they're at the summer camp or summer program. That 6 number was not randomly selected. There have been studies with Harvard, the Harvard education group, that shows that kids that read at least 4 books at their level over the summer wouldn't experience learning loss. So we thought if 4 is good, 6 is better. And since 2017, we have partnered with different summer camp providers to make sure that we are assisting them in their goal of keeping the kids reading at the level we'd like them to be reading at.
And now it's time for Big Picture, Small Steps. Beth, let's start with the big picture. When you look at these programs, what are your biggest aspirations?
My biggest aspiration is that every child has everything they need to be who they most want to be. There are children who are going to grow up to be, wonderful construction workers, and some that might be doctors, or they might want to be archaeologists or aviators or whatever they want to be. I never want their ability to read to keep them from being who they most want to be.
That's a beautiful goal. Thank you. And now let's talk small steps. For families listening, what are some simple steps that they could do today to support summer learning?
I can boil it down to one step. And I think this one thing can be transformational for families. And that is read aloud. And I don't mean read aloud if your child can't read by themselves. I'm saying read aloud. If your child can read by themselves, great. But still pick a book that you're going to share as a family. In the very beginning of reading, sometimes the brain power that it takes to decode the words and make sense of the sentence can take away from the sheer enjoyment of the magic of a book. And by having an adult who is ready to take the journey with you and read in a way that your mind can make those connections and open up this whole nother world that you haven't experienced before, can be a wonderful bonding opportunity for a family. When I think I was in 5th grade, so I would have been 10, absolutely able to be an independent reader. My family used to go to a river, and it was about 2.5 hours away from where we lived. And my mother would read aloud to us in the car. And my sisters and I still remember those books. So I think, find what you might have in common, what you'd like to learn about, and share some of the great literature with each other.
I love that advice, Beth. I'm definitely going to take that to heart. Thank you so much for being here with us and for everything that you do to guide this important work.
Well, it is absolutely a joy and a pleasure to be involved in our community in this way, and so much fun to meet new friends and keep pushing forward.
Before we wrap up, let's take a quick moment to hear from the real experts, kids.
Connecting with kids.
What's something fun you're excited to learn or try this summer?
I want to learn about space, personal space.
Connecting Communities is a Beyond the Blog podcast generously supported by the Patterson Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast or the work of the Patterson Foundation or the Suncoast Campaign for Grade Level Reading, please visit thepattersonfoundation.org and gradelevelreadingsuncoast.net. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and most of all, keep connecting. Thanks for listening.